the globe. So what is happening right now? March 2020, we heard the news that COVID-19, due to that, a lockdown was announced, and we know that the economical activity will be impacted, not just in India, but across the globe. Then if you look at the data since March 2020 till July 2020, there is no vaccine which has come out yet. In fact, if you look at the number of cases and the number of deaths, it has actually skyrocketed, obviously in a relative sense, right? Uh, then what is the reason equity market is recovering the way it has recovered in the last 3 months? The answer to that is the liquidity which has come into the economy, the liquidity which the central banks are providing. So I'll give you again a data to it. Since 2008, when US Fed started providing liquidity till February 2020, which is almost about 12 years, the overall liquidity which they provided was about 3 trillion US dollars, right? It took them 12 years, and the overall liquidity which came was 3 trillion US dollars. Whereas since February 2020 till the end of June 2020, which is just last month, in the last 4 months, from 3 trillion, the balance sheet has increased to 7 trillion. So in 12 years, they gave 3 trillion liquidity. Obviously, there have been patterns of going up and down. But in the last 4 months, from 3, it went to 7 trillion. That is the kind of insane liquidity which has come into the market. And that has led to the recovery which we are currently seeing. But what is important to look and what is important to understand, that if you look at any correction, and I'll take you to the next sheet for that. If you look at any correction which has happened, whether it was dot-com bubble, which happened in year 2000, whether it was due to any election outcome, whether it was the subprime crisis or the financial crisis which we know of in 2008, or any other crisis for that matter in the last 2 decades, every single crisis or every single correction was recovered. That is the inherent feature of the equity market. It will tend to be volatile. It will tend to go up. It will tend to come down because there are greed and fear. These are the psychological emotions which we all as an individual are impacted with. Uh, Whenever there is fear, whenever there is a sign of uncertainty, what would we do? I think our first reaction to that would be we will try to cut onto the riskier bets which we are taking. So, in a normal economy, in a expansionary economy, we would like to leverage, we would like to borrow, maybe we would like to invest into assets which are relatively riskier because our overall view would be that economy would prosper. But the moment there is a negative news, we will first cut on to the riskier bets which we had taken expecting a positive outcome. We would not want to venture into an area where we feel that there is more uncertainty. And that is the reason a crash tends to happen. And that is the reason why the overall market valuations tends to fall. And every time it has fallen in the history, which is, let's say, the data which we are looking at is the last 2 decades, the market has a tendency to recover. So in percentage terms, if we look at, I hope we are able to look at the data which is there on the screen. Let's say we are looking onto these 6 incidents starting from 2008, which is financial crisis, and what happened in the following year. What is the kind of return the market delivered in just the next 1 year from the point where the correction has happened? So 2008 to 2009, after, let's say, the market had fallen, next 1 year return was 101%. When you look at 2011, which is around when the European crisis was going on, you probably would remember the Greece economy was going through trouble, and it was required to be bailed out. They did not had money to repay to the banks, repay to the countries from where they had borrowed. So due to that problem, again the correction had happened, and then from 2011 to 2012, the next 1 year return in the equity market was 28%. The taper tantrum happened around 2013, where US Fed said that whatever liquidity we have been providing from 2008 to 2013, the last 5 years, now we will reduce that liquidity, which is we will reverse the position. And due to that reason, again, a little bit of blip had happened in the overall market. And then from 13 till 14, a 43% 1 year return has happened. Same happened in 2016 as well, when again, the yuan devaluation in just one day, the currency had devaluated to a great extent, and that impacted the overall market sentiments. And then again, the next year, the recovery was about 16%. And so has been the trend. What I'm trying to highlight, and what we always feel every time there is a correction, we as an individual and all the news, all the report which we hear, people say that this is the first time. So actually, the fact is, it will always be a new information, a new set of data, a reason for which the market would correct. If the same problem happens for the second time, there is a thing called safety net. So market will automatically create that safety net, and the second time you will not see the impact or the extent of the impact which you are seeing in the first time. So obviously, when we look at COVID-19 and we know. And this is what we've been told, that this is the first time it has happened. We have not seen such a large pandemic in the last 100 years. Obviously, that is the reason the correction has been so steep. And going forward, we will look at the data that whether it is still correcting and or has there been any recovery. If let's say, God forbid, hope it doesn't happen, but let's say if we hear a couple of years down the line again a problem which comes out due to COVID-19, I think by then we would already have created a safety net. We probably would have some medicine, some medical cure coming up, and the impact on the equity market would not be as steep as what we have seen in the month of March. In fact, as I have already said, there is no medicine as of now. There is no, I would say, a remedy which we have created, and still the market has started recovering, because this is the tendency of investors. As the liquidity come back, we try to see that what are the prospects, and the investors try to venture onto the stocks and the sectors where the valuations have corrected. So with my next sheet, I'm trying to highlight the valuation part. So what do we see generally? We look at the levels. I remember, we used to do sessions 6, 7 months ago, which is around November, December, and even in January 2020. And a lot of investors used to tell us that, look, Sensex is at 40,000, right? Let it come around 35,000 or let it go below 35,000. And, that is the point when I will invest. And we always used to tell people that, see, it is not fair that you try to time the market, because the problem is nobody knows the peak or the bottom of Sensex or Nifty or any other index, and you will not be able to capture it. Because if Sensex is to correct from 40,000, there will be a reason to it, and that reason will be negative. And that negativity will impact your decision making. So today, when things are looking good, you are thinking, or you're of the view that let Sensex come down from 40,000 to 35,000 and I will invest. But at that very moment, you would not be able to take that call. This is, trust me, exactly what we used to tell people. And then we know in the month of March, Sensex had fallen. It fell from 40,000, it came to 35, it came to 30, it came to 25,000 something, right? This is what the data was. 23rd of March was the 52-week low, which the indexes have touched. How many people, hand on heart, has invested money in the month of March? If you ask me, I don't think there is more than 2% people who have, who could take that call. 98% of the people wanted to redeem money at a time, at an opportunity which they have been waiting for from the last 1 year, from the last 2 years. They've been waiting that let the market correct, let the valuation come down, and we will invest our money into equity. But the moment that opportunity came, the moment the market corrected, and it not just corrected from 40 to 35, it actually went down to 25,000 something. Nobody had the courage to invest into the equity market. And then what happened? I'm sure we know what is the current level. Nifty has again, from 12,000 went back to 7,500. Today it is at 10,000. Sensex from 40,000 has gone to 25,000 something. Today it is again at 35,000 plus. So market corrected, it went down, it came back, it recovered in the last 4 months. Everything has just happened in the last 4.5 months. And people who were sitting on the sideline, they are still sitting on the sideline. So instead of looking at market level, I think it is better that we look at valuations. While we look at valuations, maybe price to earning, price to book value, market cap to GDP, these are some of the parameters, that will give us a more rational picture that what is the right level to enter, whether I should invest my money into equity or not. This parameter which you are looking at is just comparing the valuation from 2008, January 2018, when the markets were relatively higher, and then in May 2020. And you can see that some of the parameters are relatively cheaper as compared to what it was in January 2018. So ideally, I should look at valuation rather than looking at only the market level. One important valuation parameter out of all which we were looking at is called market cap to GDP. It gives us a directional data. So I'll just tell you what market cap and GDP denotes and how we should translate it. When we look at GDP, obviously we know GDP is nothing but the size of the overall activities, which are taking place in the economy. That's the size of our economy. When we look at market cap is nothing but the overall size of the equity market. So in equity market, we have large cap, we have mid cap, and we have small cap stocks. So the combined total of the size of all these companies in terms of their market capitalization, we call it the market cap of equity market. Now, let's assume the GDP of our country, let's assume is 100. Any point in time when the size of my equity market reaches or touches 100, I would say the market is relatively getting expensive. The moment it crosses 100, that is when I would say market is overpriced. But at a point when my overall market cap is fairly discounted and it is below 100, that is where the market is relatively attractive in terms of valuation, or I would say market is cheap. And the point is, or at that point, it is better to invest into equity. Now, when you look at this data point, obviously the fourth column you're looking at, which is market cap to GDP ratio, and obviously it is color coded as well. You can see December 2007, which is the first row, market cap to GDP was 149%. This is not a coincidence. The correction in 2008 happened and it started, let's say, from the beginning of 2008 and it continued all the way for 8 9 months. But what was the valuation? In December 2007, market cap has already crossed 100 and it was at 149. Market was actually overpriced, right? So, what an investor would have done at that point in time who was conscious of valuation, that investor would have redeemed. But how many people would do that? When the market tends to perform, we all would want to buy. We don't look at what are the valuations. And then to the contrary, what is the next, let's say, the 3 year return from that point in time? So you can now please look at the last row, which is again color coded. It shows that anyone who invested in 2007 December at market cap to GDP being at 149%, the next 3 year return has been 0%. Whereas when you look at the green coded area, which is market cap to GDP in December 2008, which is after 1 year, has corrected and it was at 56%. So, had you invested in December 2008 at a 56% market cap to GDP, the next 3 year return would have been 17% CAGR, compounded annual growth rate. And now, accordingly, you can look at any time market cap to GDP has been 100 or higher, the next 3 year returns were not attractive. But whenever market cap to GDP has been lower in terms of being below 100 and being around 55, 60, 65, the next 3 year returns have been double digit. Okay. So similarly, as on 29th of May 2020, the market cap to GDP level is at 62%, or it was at 62%. Obviously, we will know this data in next 3 years to come, but directionally, this is the point which highlights that at such a point where market cap to GDP is fairly discounted, obviously comparatively, that is the point where ideally we should be investing into equity rather than staying away from equity. Where should I invest? I think that depends on my risk appetite. That depends on how much of risk, or I would say risk tolerance I would have. And I think for that I would definitely need to speak to someone who is a financial advisor who could look onto what is the risk appetite, how I can take a position into equity. So that is subjective, and every individual would have a different risk appetite. So what ICICI Prudential Mutual Fund did, we created this valuation index. We call it equity valuation index. We colored it like a traffic light. So it has the red and the orange and the green. It basically highlights that as a combination of all those parameters which we were looking at, those ratios. It is a combination of all those ratios which is depicted in a chart or in a graph. It is showing you with the help of this line that what are the valuations at certain point in time or at a particular point in time. So what market was back in, let's say, sometime in 2018 and 19, from that point you can see the line has dropped into the green territory after what has happened in March 2020. And obviously it has been recovering as well, but the recovery is not to the level or not to the extent from where it had fallen. So it clearly highlights that this is the time when we should try and accumulate equity rather than staying away from it. Uh, so how does the economical framework work? I think I would just have 2 3 more slides on market outlook, and then we will obviously move on to the SWP, Freedom SWP part. So I just want to highlight and emphasize on this data. This will give us a more structural understanding, and I'm sure a lot of us already have it. It is just to re-emphasize on that part. So let's say in an economical framework, there are 3 entities, right? There are 3 bodies. We all are individuals. We represent the individual, who are obviously part of the overall economical activity. We are the buyers, we are the sellers, we borrow as well as we lend. Then the second body is the corporates. Corporate does the same. And the third body is obviously the government. So what happens whenever there is, let's say, uncertainty. What we are currently going through, let's say the problem of COVID 19, it has led to a lot of uncertainty. It is obviously a health related concern. And we are not just concerned about the money which we have invested into different asset classes. More importantly, we are concerned about our life. I think that is a even, I would say, far grave threat which we are looking at, which we are staring at, and we are hoping and praying that obviously hope sometime in the future there would be a medicine, there would be some antidote that will come out, and we will get a relief from it. So what would happen while we are going through all these notions? Our risk-taking appetite will become zero. So the fact is, whatever money I had as an individual in the month of January, that money has not gone anywhere. Obviously, if it was invested in equity, it had fallen and it has recovered. But I do have that money somewhere in my bank account or somewhere with me. In the month of January, I was okay and I was happy to take some risk onto that money which I was holding onto. But as the situation has developed, my risk taking capacity has reduced. And now today, if you ask me to take the same kind of risk or the decision I would have taken in January, today I'm not ready to take that. Obviously, because I feel there is uncertainty. Similarly, what are the corporates doing? Maybe they were hiring, maybe they were expanding their businesses, they were setting up new plants, but as they know that currently the individuals are not going to spend, because obviously we are not looking forward to the kind of uncertainty which is there. So the corporate guy is also not ready to spend. He is not ready to hire. He is also not creating new plants or capacities. So as an outcome, both the individuals as well as the corporate, they would not spend money into the overall economical revival. In fact, they would not even borrow from the market. What would that lead to? That would lead to the stoppage, or pausing the flow or the cycle of money which is there in the economy. And when neither the individual nor the corporates take any risk or leverage themselves or create opportunities, that will halt the overall economical activity, and that is what we are fearing. Then what happens in such a environment? It is nothing but the duty of the government, duty of the central bank to step forward and provide comfort. How does the government provide comfort? They provide it in the form of fiscal support. The central bank provide comfort in the form of monetary support. So what do? They give assurances to the people in different forms. They provide guarantee, they provide credit lines, they provide liquidity to the bond market, they provide lower interest rates to the overall economy. And due to these parameters, or due to these, let's say, steps which they would take, the overall economical sentiment and the risk taking appetite reverses and it starts coming back. And this is what we are seeing in the last 2 3 months, right? This is how at any point in time, you can look at the data for the last 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. Whenever a situation like this happen, individual and corporate risk taking appetite goes down, it becomes zero. It is the government who have to step forward and they need to provide comfort. So I think the important question is that how we would be in 2021 or 2022. I think this is what we look at. I would say even a more important question is that whether we would survive as a corporate, as a business in 2020. So if the government doesn't come forward, if they don't provide liquidity, they don't provide comfort, there will not be any economy in 2021. So it is important that we survive 2020, and that is when we can see and we can look at the other prospect in the years to come. And this is exactly what the government is doing, and not just in our country, but governments and central banks across the globe are providing that kind of liquidity. I think what is debatable here, debatable is the time frame. So maybe some of us would agree that okay, it would take next 6 months for everything to revive in terms of liquidity, and the comfort would come. But maybe there are people who would say, the process could take at least 2 years, or at least 1 year is required for liquidity to come back, and prosperity to come back, and economical scales to go back to the levels where they were. So that is a debatable area, and it is open. We can have a view, and we can obviously from that perspective we can put our points. But what is important to know, and what we have seen in the couple of slides which we were looking at earlier, every time there is a correction, obviously it leads to economical problem, it leads to a market related, or let's say financial market problem. Every time there is a problem, there has been a recovery. Recovery could take time, recovery could be relatively more swifter. So right now, I think another important area to look at is that what would recover first. Whether it is the economy that would recover first, or is it the stock market that is going to recover first. I think I'll just show you one data point, and it is right there on your screen. You can look at how stock market has been recovering. So from 23rd of March 2020, these are some of the sectors and how much they have recovered until 30th of June, which is the latest data. So pharma as a sector, as an index, has recovered, or it has delivered a return almost as good as 55%. Energy is about 46, telecom, commodity, all have recovered. Importantly, how much Nifty 50 delivered? It delivered about 35.6% return. So we cannot just stay back in March and February data 2020. We also have to look at what is happening around us and what has happened in the last 3.5 months. So there has been a recovery, but is there a recovery in economy? I think the economy recovery is also happening, but the rate is fairly slow as compared to the rate which we are looking at on our screens right now, which is the recovery in equity market. So why there is equity market recovery faster than the recovery in economy? So again, this is a concept which we have to understand. There are two phases. One is a situation where the liquidity is tight. So whenever the liquidity is tight, that is the environment when central banks are increasing interest rates. When the repo rate is going up, when the FD rates are going up, when your bond and loan rates are going up, whenever that would happen, the liquidity is tight. In such an environment, it is economy that will recover first. Whereas to the contrary, whenever you have easy liquidity, when the repo rate is coming down, your FD rates are falling every month, your loan rates are coming down, overall yields are coming down, this is the situation of easy liquidity. In such an environment, it is obviously the equity market that will recover first and economy will recover later. This is exactly what is happening. Since March 2020 till now, RBI has cut repo from being 5.15 in March, it has come down to 4%. In line with that, your FD rates have come down, the lending rates have come down, and overall yields have also come down in the debt market. And this is the situation, so called the easy liquidity environment. And that is the reason you're looking at the kind of comfort and the kind of growth which we are seeing in equity. And if this environment continues, which we expect to continue going forward, you will continue to see recovery and growth into the equity market, irrespective whether the economy would recover in 3 months or it would recover in 1 year. So, what do I require? I require a combination to create wealth. I think why I'm here on this call, I'm here as an individual, as an investor on this call to understand what is happening and what should be my counter action to it. How should I take care of the current situation? How should my portfolio prosper? And obviously, the later end, how should I create a secondary source of income? But the remedy, the mantra for wealth creation is that I need these three C's into my portfolio. On a lighter side, I obviously require cash, right, so that I could invest. What else I require is I need courage, because a lot of people had cash in January 2020. But when March 2020 happened, they did not had courage. We called them, we told them, look, you were waiting for Sensex to come down from 40 to 35. It is less than 30,000. What about that investment decision? But there was lack of courage. So they could not take that call. And what they have missed on to? The recent rally which has happened. And obviously, the third C, which is the crisis. So I might have cash, I might have courage, but there is no crisis, which means there is no opportunity where a very significant correction is happening. So I need to be mindful of these, let's say, three, I would say, individual events, which is obviously holding on to the cash. And obviously, there is some courage which I require to take that call. And if there is a crisis into the market, this is the best recipe I could give to my portfolio and to my overall long-term wealth creation. And these are the words of Warren Buffett, who is obviously one of the best gurus into the financial market. So we have understood broadly what is happening, right? Now we are looking at, from the perspective of what are the different asset classes into the, where I could invest. So obviously we understand equity. We were talking about equity. If I watch a couple of news channels and if I look onto the pop-ups which I get onto my mobile phone, trust me, in a week's time, they will make me feel that I have become, a kind of fund manager who could actually look onto equity and maybe give some recommendations also on a lighter note, because that's the kind of data you get on equity. It just bombards you left, right, center. You don't have time but to read about equity. There is some news or the other which is flashing all the time. What about debt? I can tell you in our, overall investment, a lot of investors we meet, a lot of advisors we meet, there are very few people who actually genuinely understand debt as an asset class. So I would say that it is important that we should look at it as well. There is not much data available. So obviously I could take help of a financial advisor who could translate it to me. And the third asset class is gold. I could venture into gold by investing through a lot of online portals which are available. There are ETFs, there are gold schemes which are there. So I could venture and I could take some exposure into that part as well, obviously dependent on my risk appetite. Uh, Moving on to the next slide, these are the different performances, or I would say in particular calendar year, different type of performance every asset class has delivered. So why I should diversify? Why should I not put all my money into equity? Because equity delivers the best return, I should do that. The answer is yes. If my risk appetite permits me to see plus 20% return in 1 year and minus 15% return in next year, I think I am made for equity, and I should not look on to any other asset class. But if I would have problem with minus 15%, I think I should add a mix to my overall portfolio, and that is where the answer of diversification comes. To diversify, I could obviously look at debt. Debt does not deliver negative return. You can look at the entire period. Obviously, it has delivered lower return, but they are not negative return because debt works on interest, which accrues. And obviously, there is some interest rate sensitivity which it attracts, and that I can understand with again help of a financial advisor. And the third asset class is gold. So gold is basically a hedge for inflation. Some part of the portfolio would be hedged, and that will continue to provide me return. And if there is uncertainty in debt and equity, obviously gold will tend to outperform. Okay. Uh, Moving on to the next slide. How the investor behavior works. See, we as an individual understand ourselves, but it is important that we try to control that investment behavior, which get triggered, which get influenced by the market news. So there is return in equity. You can see, and I'm sure the first slide which we have seen, we know in the last 40 years, Sensex has delivered 15% CAGR return. There have been ups, there have been downs, there are corrections like 52%, there is appreciation by 90%, 70%, even more, even less. But the last 40-year CAGR return have been 15%. So when investment is ready to deliver 14, 15% return, why do my portfolio not deliver that return? So where is the gap? The gap is called behavior gap, and that is there with me. I expect market to deliver 12% return, but my expectations are 12% to be a linear number. Okay, har saal I should get 12%. And if I look at my 5-year return, it should be 12 followed by more 12s, and that's how my average should be that. But what is the outcome? Market would obviously deliver that kind of return. It has delivered, in fact, 14, 15 in the last 40 years. I'm looking at 12 only, but it would come with a lot of volatility. It would be 8% 1 year, minus 14 in the next year, 48 in the third year. Obviously, this is only an example. So, what would happen when it is 8 and I expected 12? I tend to become jittery. I try to panic a little. But the next year, when market falls to minus 14%, I would just redeem my money. I do not want to be invested because I expected 12. It gave me 8 in the first year. Now it is minus 14. That is not acceptable. What did I do wrong? I did not understood the nature of equity. Because for people who have redeemed money in the month of March, expecting it would continue to fall, I think obviously looking at the last 3 month data, they would not be very happy. Uh, this answer would always come retrospectively. Today I could look at the back testing of last 10 years, 20 years, and I can show you, look, you would have invested here and you would have made this kind of return. But the problem is I could never backtest emotions. Emotions cannot be put onto a graph like this and could be reflected. So emotions need to be learned, behavior need to be learned, and I need to adapt a strategy, and that strategy would help my portfolio. If I react to every positive and every negative news, I would not be able to deliver better return than what market is providing. In fact, I would earn less than what market is providing, because every time it would fall I will exit, every time it would rise I would enter, and I would just go opposite to what I should ideally be doing, right? So for people who would redeem, obviously their average return will drop. Rather, people who would remain invested and they will continue to earn. So in cricket language, and we all love cricket, we understand cricket. What I require aggressiveness, right? I require a batsman who would go out and hit sixes and fours. But this batsman can also get out, because while he would be hitting, he would be playing a 2020 format. There is a good possibility he get caught. I would also require a batsman who would play the test format. He would not get out. He will continue to, take the singles and doubles, and the scoreboard continue to keep on getting better. So hence, hybrid category or asset allocation category or a combination of equity and debt is what I would ideally look at. And obviously, I am broadly saying this, but as an individual, I need to first understand what is my risk appetite. Maybe some of us are only meant for equity. So maybe they just want an aggressive batsman. They need 2020 format. They don't care for test. But there are people who would not like the T20 format in their portfolio. So for them, obviously, the other asset classes would turn out to be handy. Uh, right, so this is just in comparison between the debt and a traditional investment avenue, what we call FD. Just to give you a relative understanding without spending much time on this, that there is a thing called indexation benefit. Indexation benefit is nothing but the tax advantage which government of India has offered to people who are parking money into debt. What it does, it offers us to get the benefit of inflation. So in this situation, I do not have to pay the overall whatever my overall capital gain is. I do not have to pay taxes on that. Rather, I pay tax on my debt investment after adjusting for the cost of inflation. So while I do that, let's say in this scenario, the slide which you're looking at, it highlights that you have started investing and both the asset classes were offering 8% return. But at the end, after adjusting for taxes, and obviously I'm looking at an investor who is into the 30%, which is the highest tax bracket in our country, would tend to make, let's say, in case of debt product from 8, the net return will come down to 7, whereas in FD or traditional investment avenue, the net return will be 5, 5.5. So there is a good difference. And I would request again, speak to the advisor. Hello. Uh, I hope I am audible. If Shalini, you could please confirm it. Maybe
Yes, now you are audible. Either initially in the past two slides, I could not hear you.
the last two slides.
Yes, we could not hear you during the last two slides. You're audible now.
Okay, okay, sure. So the last slide which we were looking at was on SIP. So the idea was to share that SIP is a tool or a product which we should look at. Obviously, to invest in a staggered or in a tactical manner. Tactical, I would say, because it allows us to start an SIP, pause a SIP, or stop it at any point in time. It is very comfortable. It is a very disciplined approach, basically, to the portfolio. And there is any amount with whatever we are comfortable with which we could start an SIP, and it would allows us to average out the overall market by investing every month. So ideally, for an investor who is investing for long term, SIP is something they could consider, and it is fairly known and popular also in our let's say financial market. Coming on to the second part of the PPT, which is Freedom SWP, right? SWP is relatively less known concept in our country. Not many people know that there is a thing called systematic withdrawal plan and what it does. So the second part of the session will obviously cover that. SWP is just the opposite of SIP, right? So what happens in SIP? In SIP, I will decide an amount, I will decide a particular date of the month, and I decide a scheme in which I want to invest. So what will happen? On that defined date which I have selected, the amount will be debited from my bank account and it will be invested into the mutual fund scheme. This is what SIP does. What is SWP? SWP is just the opposite of SIP. In this situation, in case of SWP, amount is already there. It is already invested in the mutual fund scheme. SWP will allow me to decide a date. On that particular date, a certain amount, which obviously I would look at how it would be considered, will be taken out from the mutual fund scheme and it will be given into my bank account. It is like a cash flow. It is like creating a secondary source of income. Why do I need a secondary source of income? I think we all know the answer to that. But the data highlights, in our country, people who are above the age of 60, right? And I'm specifically, let's say, talking about that. There are only 10% people in our country who are above the age of 60 that have any source of income, whether it is rental income or it is through the pension. There are 90% people who do not have any source of income, and the way out for them is either to continue working or to depend on their families. And obviously, we know in the current environment, the current financial situation, the families are already stressed, and that obviously creates a lot of financial burden. So in our country, we have this tendency that we don't talk about retirement until we are already going to retire, and until we have already reached that age of retirement. So we rather feel that I should think of my golden years, which is the time that would start after I have attained the age of 60. I should start thinking of that time far before I am going to reach the age of retirement. So it is not something for people who are ready to retire or who have already retired. It is for everyone. People who have the longer time, they are in the best could allow us to pay that extra, let's say, school fee, which is going to increase every year. Maybe secondary income is would allow us to save a little extra for something which we are planning for in the times to come. But secondary income is important, is what we feel, especially in, let's say, the current scenario where people who have been working into industries where those industries were severely impacted, and there have been cuts into the payouts, and a lot of people and their jobs were also impacted. Had there been a secondary source of income, I think they would have some comfort. So trust me, it is important to look at and to understand. So SWP allows us to create that secondary source of income. But historically, SWP has been a fixed amount. So let's say I decide I need an SWP of 50,000 rupee, let's say in 1 year. What would happen? SWP will continue to be 50,000 rupees. But with time, as inflation would go higher, my lifestyle expenses, the things which I'm using, which I'm buying, maybe I could afford it in 50,000 rupees in the first year. But in 5 year, 10 year, 15 year, the cost of those same commodities, same products which I'm consuming, that cost will go high. Why we are taking 4% example? It is because in our country, RBI has said that their long-term inflation target is 4%. That is the rate they would try to maintain. So that's why 4% is taken an example. So if I am running my expenses today and I live in Delhi NCR and I spend 50,000 rupees today, 5 years from now I would need 60,833 rupees for the same lifestyle. 25 years from now, I would need 1,33,000 rupees to run the same lifestyle. It is the same newspaper, same bread, butter, milk. I'm not adding anything new. But because costing or the inflation is going up by 4%, that is the reason these things will cost me more. And if I have to understand it in a better way, maybe look at retrospectively, maybe ask, and I'm sure we have asked and our parents have told us, what was the price of 1 liter milk maybe 20 years from now, or what was the price of, let's say, a lot of other commodities which we are consuming. The prices were not even half of what we are paying right now. They were lower than that, but it has become expensive. So what is the reason we don't think it will continue or it would not become expensive in the future? The answer is it will. The rate of inflation is, let's say, we are assuming it to be 4%, but it can be higher. It would depend, right? So hence SWP could give us cash flow, but SWP could not increase cash flow, or rather, it would not adjust itself in line with inflation. So there was a problem. So what we thought, we created a solution for that as well. So this is one of the unique product which is available in the industry. We call ICICI Prudential Freedom SWP. So Freedom SWP is obviously allowing us to create a secondary source of income. It allows us to create a payout, a cash flow for ourselves. It is also inflation adjusted. So hence the tagline is a big payout is good, but a payout that keeps growing bigger is obviously far better. How does it work? So maybe we'll spend another 5-10 minutes on that, and then we would look on to taking up some questions. So obviously SWP, we have understood it is fixed. Compared to that, Freedom SWP will continue to rise. It will be accordingly adjusted. And my payout on an annual basis will continue to rise in line with the rise in inflation. Now, as an investor, what do I have to do? I first have to decide a scheme in which I would invest, from where I want my SWP payout to come. There are schemes which I will show you. I will also decide an amount, the amount which I would like to invest today. Whatever amount I have chosen, the payout is going to be 6%. And this is very, very critically being back tested, all evaluations being done. And that's why we have come to a rate of 6%. It is not randomly being taken. So if I invest 10 lakh rupee, my 6% tend to be, let's say, 60,000 over 1 year. If I invest 1 crore rupee, my 6% obviously be 6 lakh rupees. So accordingly, a 6% payout in 1 year is what I will get. Along with that, I have the option to decide what is my annual top up rate. There are three options. Either I take a 3% or a 4%, or I can even take a 5% annual top up rate. What that would allow, it will allow my payout to be appreciated by that percentage, I can take the payout from next month. I could take it from the 13th month because if I do it from an equity scheme, there is a short term capital gain for the first 12 months. So I would rather take it from 13th month. If I take it from 37th month, that will further allow me to compound better and my overall money would grow. There will not be much of stress. And if I take it from 37th month, if I am from investing in a debt scheme, my long term capital gain will continue from there. Or I could take it from any month I like. It could be 5th, 10th, or whatever as per my comfort. These are some of the schemes which are available for the Freedom SWP payout. These are all hybrid products, which is they invest into equity as much they invest into debt. There are models which allow the fund manager to manage equity and debt levels. This is the calculation. I would, in the interest of time, just come on to, let's say, the 4% calculation. It would again allow us to understand the last sheet as well. Let's say I'm investing 10 lakh rupee and I have invested on the 1st of January 2020. Obviously, the payout is going to be 6% of my invested amount. So I have chosen that I want my payout to grow at 4%, right? And I would get payout from the next month. If the equity market grows at 7% only, I expected it to grow 12%, right? That's what I thought. But unfortunately, the market only grew at 7%. What will happen to my 10 lakh rupee? You can look at the sheet, it shows withdrawal number of years. I will continue to get my 6% payout with a 4% appreciation for the next 24 years, which means until 2044, my 10 lakh rupee will continue to pay me a secondary source of income because market has only grown at 7%. At the end of 2044, my money will run out, okay, and the payout will become zero. What will be the total payout I will get? So I have invested 10 lakh, but in these, let's say 24 years, I would have redeemed 24 lakh rupee. That is 23.99 lakh rupee. But what if market grows at 8%? 7% is a very conservative estimate. If market grows at 8%, my money will not run out in 24 years. I will rather get the payout till 29 years and I'll get a payout of 31, almost 32 lakh rupee. What if market grows at 9%? If market grows at 9%, the payout will come for 38 years, which is for next 38 years, 2058, and I will tend to redeem 51.97%. And let's say I'm very very lucky and market grows at 10%, which is still a very conservative double digit estimate. In our economy, we look at nominal GDP at, let's say, 6.5 to 7%. We look at inflation at 4%. You add it up, you get the overall economical growth. So we, our bottom line expectations are that 5 to 10-year growth should be at least 10%. But here we have taken 10% as the most exaggerated figure. So if market do grow at 10%, I will be able to get my payout for the next 80 plus years. Why only 80? Because beyond 2099 we could not calculate. So I will get my payout until 2099. I will withdraw about 3 crore 17 lakh rupee, and the final value at the end of 2099 would be 2 crore 21 lakh, only if market delivers a 10% return. So my money will not run out. So why we are taking 7%, 8%, 9% also? Because to give you a very conservative estimate. Obviously, we do not expect equity to deliver 7% or 8%. But let's say if that is the scenario, so what is the downside? What is the lower side I could expect? Hence, this data highlights the prospects that how money would look like. What would happen to my money after 2099? Obviously, I am talking about myself. I personally do not expect that I would be there until 2099, to be honest. But yes, there is a process of transmission. Whosoever is the nominee, whosoever is the portfolio holder after me, that person could either continue to get the payout or they can decide whether they would want to redeem money or take a decision on that. But the payout will continue if the investor chooses or whosoever is a nominee chooses to get the payout. Uh, Similar example is taken at 5% top up. So if the top up is at 5%, obviously the rate at which my money is being redeemed, which is the rate at which I'm getting my cash flow, is putting more stress. So in this situation, I'm just directly moving on to the 10% example, that my money, if I take 5% payout, obviously the rate of payout is higher, would run out in 2058. And of my 10 lakh rupee, I would be able to get a final value of close to 66 lakh 43,000. So I think what is important, there are two things, before I decide anything for myself. The first thing is what is I am going to create for, let's say, the next generation, or let's say the nominees or people who would finally inherit the money which I'm accumulating. That is part one. But is that the only thing I should be concerned of? I think the second part, which is also equally important, what did I get? of the overall wealth of the overall corpus which I've created? Is there any financial support I've created for myself? So I think that part is also equally important. So accordingly, I should gauge and I should evaluate freedom SWP, because a lot of us, would only be concerned about the first part. But in our industry and in financial market, it is also important to look at that how would I sustain myself? That sustainability is a very important aspect, and freedom SWP allows us to create that sustainable corpus for ourselves as an individual. All these scenarios put together, 3%, 4%, 5% top up, this is how much the money would last. Uh, in a 7% market environment, with a 3% top up, money will run out in 28 years, whereas 24 in 4% top up, and accordingly in 21 years. So, ideally, see the bottom line I want you to understand. The first part, which is secondary source of income, the second part, 6% is the payout with which we would start. But the moment I decide a 3% top up or a 4% top up or a 5% top up, my annual payouts are increasing. They are increasing in line with inflation or maybe slightly higher than inflation, and that is what is creating a payout pressure. And that's how the reason why the money is running out in different time frames as per the expectation of market performances are, let's say, from 7% all the way to 10%. And that's what this slide highlights. We have done some back testing to give you a real term perspective. We have done, let's say, the basic calculation which you have already seen. Now we are putting it into some of the schemes. Okay, what would have happened, had I invested in a scheme called ICICI Prudential Balance Advantage Fund? I invested in 2006 and got a payout of 6%, and I chose a 4% top up. Whether my money grew, is there still anything left in the portfolio after getting this money? The answer is yes. In the last 13 years, I invested 10 lakh rupee. Today, the current value of my 10 lakh rupee would have been 14 lakh 79,000. I started with a payout of 5,000 rupee, obviously 6%, which has also grown to 8,225, 325. And the total payout in the last 13 years I've got is already 10 lakh 31,000. So I invested 10 lakh. I've already got a payout of 10 lakh 31,000. My current value is 14 lakh 79,000. This is real time data. You can check this on the website. All the NAV data and details are available. When I look at another scheme, which is ICICI Prudential Equity and Debt Fund, same invested about 20 years ago, 10 lakh rupee. Today, the value of 10 lakh rupees is 48 lakh. I have already redeemed 18 lakh. And the payout is continuing. Started with 5,000 rupee payout, today grown to 10,900. I'm taking another example of multi-asset fund. I invested 10 lakh rupee about 17 years ago. Today, the value of 10 lakh is 1 crore 90 lakh rupees. I have already withdrawn 14 lakh 70,000, started at 5,000 monthly. Today, I'm getting 9,700 monthly. And this is the kind of growth I've seen. And these are not fabricated numbers. This is actually real time now. My 10 lakh rupee would have actually grown to 1 crore 90 after taking a payout. Had I not taken the payout, the figure would have been different. Had I done an SIP, the figure would have been different. But this is for the lump sum which I've created of, I have invested of 10 lakh rupee. The value of my 10 lakh rupee would have been 1 crore 90 after the respective payouts which I've got. Uh, Again, comparing it with 2020, that somebody would ask, see, that was 2006 or 2014. I don't know what was the situation then. I am in 2020 where there is a COVID-19 problem. I don't know what the next 10 years have in line. So how would I translate this situation? So in 2020, market has fallen by 40%, right? It fell in the month of March. There is already a recovery of 37%. So we are comparing the current situation to 2008 when market fell by 52%. So somebody who would have done a Freedom SWP in 2008 and that person continued getting payout for the next 10 years, how would it look like in 2018? Again, taking Balance Advantage Fund, I started payout or I started Freedom SWP in 2008. Obviously, you can see the value is dropping because market is falling, but my payout continued. And at one point, the scheme started recovering. My money started growing. Today, the value of my 10 lakh rupee, as after 10 years, it grew to 11 lakh 15,000. I started with a payout of 5,000. It went all the way up to 7,000 something, and I have got a payout of 7 lakh 20. So even I started in a very adverse scenario, in a very let's say negative market scenario where the markets were down. Still, the next 10 years, my payout had continued and my capital has grown. Those 7%, 8%, 9% examples are used to tell you the downside. What is the worst you could expect? But obviously, we expect better return from equity. And I think you can look at what would have happened even if I had invested in 2008. the money would have come to me. Similar example for equity and debt fund. I invested in 2008. Obviously, the valuation fell in the first year. It recovered and continued to recover. The value of my 10 lakh rupee after 10 years would have been 10 lakh 76,000, and I would have got my payout of 7 lakh 20. Had I done it in multi asset, which is the third scheme, the 10 lakh would have fallen. Then it recovered. The value would have been 11 lakh 93 after 10 years, and the payout would have received. So, in all the scenarios, what we're trying to convey that I need to look at both the aspects. One, I should create wealth. That is definitely required. But I should also look at, the financial stability. Why we are not able to take a lot of decision in our life, whether they are related to career, whether they are related to retiring early, whether they are related to education. It is because we have lack and we are dependent on only the primary source of income. So people who have successfully been able to create a secondary source, they are the people who are able to achieve the financial independence, and that leads to the real freedom which we finally attain in our life. So why I need freedom SWP? I need freedom SWP to create a secondary source of income, and to create that financial independence in my life, so that I can take all those decisions. And even in an environment which is, let's say, the current environment, I would not be under any financial stress. And obviously there is long term capital gain, there is long term wealth which is also simultaneously getting created. uh, so from directionally, what do I need if I'm an investor? I have a lot of time. I'm only 25, I'm only 30, or I'm only 35. I'm not going to retire for the next 25, 30 odd years. And I don't have a lot of money with which I could invest and get a cash flow. I think I should do an SIP. I should do a freedom SIP, because freedom SIP after 15 years will automatically become a freedom SWP. So I should rather do that. But what do I do if I'm 45, 50, 55, closer to retirement? I need secondary income, or maybe I'm 30. But because I have my kids who are going to school, or I'm 35, I have kids who are going to school, and I need a secondary source of income from where, some of my expenses could be taken care. I need a freedom SWP. If I require it immediately, need cash flow immediately, I can do it right away with the help of Freedom SWP. Or there are Freedom SWP investment pack. It allow me to take a payout from sixth year, or from ninth year, or 12th year, or 15th year, whatever the requirement is. So that pack is accordingly designed to, keeping in mind all the requirements, and I could also opt for that. So what would I do? I think first I would have to understand that in terms of as an individual. And I think a financial advisor is the best person I could consult, I could talk to get my clarity onto it. I also need to understand my risk appetite towards equity, debt, gold, all the financial assets which are available, and accordingly I need to take a call. But what is investment? Investment is to create long term wealth. It is also to create a financial independence. It would only come when I have a secondary source of income. Plus, the mantra to create wealth is to have obviously cash, but important to have courage. It is the times when there is problem, when there is crisis, that is the time I should invest rather than wait for a clarity and I would have already missed the bus. So broadly, I think this is what we wanted to cover. For me to cover or to travel 1,000 miles, it is important that I should take the first step. So that first step could be a freedom SWP, it could be a freedom SIP, it could be doing that lump sum investment which is needed to be done. But I must take that step so that I, tend to create the long-term wealth for myself and obviously for my family and people who will inherit it. That is everything I had to cover in today's PPT. I am happy to take if there is any question, and you could please type your question in the chat box, so that we could answer it. And if there is anything you would like to add, Shalini, you could please add. Thank you.
Thank you, Haider, for those wonderful insights on the market, as well as a detailed presentation on the Freedom SWP. I'm sure our investors, would have got to know about this new solution which has been launched, and be excited about this. We'll start covering the questions one by one. We do have a lot of questions which have already come to us in the chat box. For the rest of our investors, kindly put in any questions you have in the chat box, and we'll be happy to take them. So the first question is by Abhishek. Abhishek wishes to understand about the numbers or the overall shape of the economy. So while we have liquidity pushing up the markets, but the corporate earnings and the overall GDP number are expected to come up soon, and they do not look very fundamentally strong. So what is your take on the overall numbers of the economy? Either could you take that question? Either could you please confirm in the chat box if I'm audible to you? Participants, we seem to have some sort of a technical glitch where Haider is not kindly connected to us. If you could just give me a minute to contact him, I'll get him back online.
Sorry, I hope I'm audible. I hope it's audible now. Shalini, if you could please confirm.
Yeah, either it is audible.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry, I just did not realize the mic went on mute. So, the question which was highlighted in the chat box, I believe, related to the shape of the economy and the liquidity, which is pushing up the market right now, and how it would impact the corporate earnings or the GDP number in the future. Uh, so see what we try to convey, while we were running the PPT as well. So the idea is, obviously there are two components. The first component is economy itself, and the second component is equity market. They do not work in isolation. So we can't have a situation where equity market will tend to deliver, it will tend to grow, but overall market, or sorry, overall GDP would not pick up. We cannot have a situation like that. But there are, let's say, parameters, or let's say there are tools which are available in the hand of government, in the hand of central bank, which, with the help of which, they could provide a situation, they could provide comfort that would lead to recovery and revival. So in the current context, what we are looking at, and I would not deny that, there is obviously, from the macro perspective, a lot of parameters are deteriorated, and it is debatable that some of us would agree that economy would take maybe about 2 years to recover. Maybe some of us, on the contrary, would say maybe in the next 6 months, as the COVID-19 vaccine comes out, we would be back on track, and all that news is there in the market. But what I should rather look at as a investor is that, let's say, the broadly investors are divided into three aspects. One, let's say, are the most aggressive, which are 20% of the people. They want to take call, they want to invest into equity, they are ready to take the upside, they are comfortable with the downside. The second set of investors are the conservative ones. They do not want to venture onto the aggressive assets. They just want a consistent CAGR return. Maybe they are the one who would focus onto debt products. The third category, which is where the maximum people are, which is about 60% of the market, they are the moderate investors. So for these set of moderate investors, I think they would adopt a hybrid strategy where hybrid products would cushion the fall. They would not fall as much as the market would, and they will participate on the upside. But precisely looking at the liquidity push which is there in the market. So yes, right now I don't think it would be fair for us to say that the corporate earnings, let's say, we are already in the Q2. Some of the results have started coming, and obviously in July or August we would get to know that what are the kind of earning impacts we have seen, let's say, in the first quarter. Some of that would obviously be in line with what the market anticipations are. Some could be bad, obviously some can be good. So we are not expecting, and we are not saying that maybe in the next quarter, or let's say the quarter to follow, the economy would be back on track and everything would come back to the levels where we had fallen. Rather, what we are trying to highlight that, see, directionally, for economy to do well, or let's say the economy to do well first, or before the market is to recover, ideally we should be in an environment where the liquidity is getting tightened. We are not in that environment. So if, as an investor, I'm waiting for economy to recover, if I continue to wait that, let the inflation pick up, let the GDP go back to 7%, and rest of the macro parameters to come up, I think it would be way too late, because it will eventually come. But right now, the scenario is not that. Right now, the environment is not that. We are in an easy liquidity environment. So, whenever we are easing liquidity and we are reducing taxes, we are reducing, let's say, the overall interest rates, the collections are falling. You would not see the macro parameters reviving first. You would rather see that liquidity would revive the equity market, the sentiments of the investors. But yes, I should not go by that only. That does not mean that I would change my risk appetite from being a moderate to an aggressive investor. I think I should invest as per my risk appetite. But rather waiting for, let's say, the GDP number, or let's say the overall macro parameters to pick up, I rather need to look at what is happening in the in the current context. And the current context is more supportive to the market sentiments and equity, rather than being supportive towards the macro parameters. So as per my risk appetite, I think I should take a call, and that would allow me to create portfolio. Because if I wait for the overall sentiments in terms of macros to improve, I like I said already, I think that would be relatively would take some time, and I probably would miss out onto the opportunity on that. I hope it answers that question.
Yes, it does. Haider, moving on to the
Yeah.
second question, we also have some young investors who are looking to looking to invest into this market. So we have a question that in the course of the pandemic, now that the market has gone down, it's still at 35,000 levels. How do investor enter into the market?
Shalini, I believe your voice was slightly choppy. I think it's to do with
Okay,
my
I'll
network.
repeat that.
I think everything is okay at your end. It's maybe there is a problem with my network. So maybe what I could do, I can read the questions in the chat box, and maybe one by one I could pick them up, and I hope that would
That's
allow us to
absolutely
cover.
okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Sure, you can address the
yeah.
participant
Sure,
who's mentioned the
sure.
question, and you can answer that.
So I'm moving on to the next one, which is due to COVID problem, the market has gone down. How can a new investor enter the market? Uh, See, I think due to COVID problem, I think Mr. Abhinav has asked it. The market had gone down, sir, and it had gone down in March. What is happening in the last 3 months? I'm sure you probably would have seen that slide which we have highlighted on the PPT. That some of the sectors have very significantly recovered, but even the overall market has recovered. Overall market, when I say, I'm looking at Nifty 50, which is seen, or which is believed to be the health of, let's say, the overall listed space. So even Nifty has recovered. How a new investor would enter the market, I think for any investor, whether I'm an existing investor or a new investor, sir, I would look at my risk appetite. So at any point in time, it is my risk appetite that is the deciding factor that what kind of call I should take. And in line with risk appetite, I should also look at what is my time horizon. So if my time horizon is longer, I'm somebody who wants to invest for 8 years, 10 years, longer period, I think it automatically increases my risk appetite. I should go for a pure equity product. I should go for an aggressive portfolio. But if my time horizon is lower, let's say it is 3 years or 5 years or anything close to that, I think accordingly I would reduce my risk taking capacity and I would enter into a portfolio which is relatively less aggressive. I could even venture into a hybrid product. So I believe, maybe if I try to relate from your question, this question is coming from somebody like me. I am also a moderate investor, though I am in the financial market, but all my pure equity investment is done only through SIP. All my lump sum is done through hybrid products. That's how I attain or I have, got comfort into my investment. So maybe for an investor like me, maybe for an investor who's slightly concerned about volatility, a hybrid product is a better answer to, venture into the equity market. And these products are all season products. It does not matter what is the level of the market, where the market has reached, whether it has corrected or it has fallen, because these products increase and decrease equity levels. They take higher exposure, they take lower exposure, so they automatically cover that part of participation or moving out of the market, which ideally I would like to do as a moderate investor. So I think hybrid product would allow us to do that, and risk appetite is the answer in terms of understanding which product is would be suitable for me. And obviously the financial advisor is the person who could guide us better. I think Sejal has asked, since the arrival of new vaccine, the pharma sector will be in demand. What would be the investment scenario in these companies for the current year? So I think, obviously, if you look at the recovery, pharma has recovered the best, which is more than 50% in the last 3.5, 4 months. Yes, the current nature of problem is, let's say, healthcare related. So if directionally you would ask me, I would say my inclination says, and the broader market reading says that I have to look at what happened in 2008. The problem was financial sector related. So what happened in the next decade? Everything was pushed, and all the banks and financial institutions tried leveraging and benefiting out of what the problem which the overall globe had faced in 2008. So in 2020, the problem is, let's say, related to health. So obviously, what you and I would do, I think the first thing people are thinking of is to taking a life insurance. A lot of people are now taking health insurance, which they had not thought of. And this will not stop here. Obviously medicine would come, obviously antidote would come, and I think you and me are thinking in the same direction, that people will be more inclined towards paying attention towards their health, towards medical, towards all the facilities what governments are doing, not just in India, across the globe. They try to build better healthcare system, they're trying to build better hospitals. Private players as well as government players are venturing into it. A lot of medical advancement, a lot of medical equipments are now being manufactured. So yes, directionally, if I have to take a tactical call into a sector, I think pharma can be a good sector, and it is not going to do well for the next 3 months, 6 months. I think maybe for the next 5 years, there is a good opportunity. But I also have to be mindful of the fact that whenever I venture into a particular sector, my risk appetite has to be very, very high. Because yes, I am expecting it to do well, but I also have to, digest it with a pinch of salt, that equity markets are always volatile. There can be 99 news which are positive news, and that would lead to an upside, but there could be one minor 1% news that will come out, and it could hit me on the downside. So I have to be prepared for that, is what I'm trying to say. But yes, there is a good opportunity. Pharma sector should do well. It is a healthcare related problem. Even if the vaccine comes on 15th August, some of the you probably would have read it in news. I've read it somewhere. There was a pop-up. Even after that, it doesn't mean that I would stop caring for myself. I will go out and venture the areas where, and the risk would go away. The risk obviously would not go away. People will still be conscious, and these sectors and companies would definitely benefit out of that. Uh, what are the tax implications of mutual fund SWP? I think Mr. Robin has asked that question. So, sir, tax implication is as per the appetite, I would say, of that particular scheme. Let's say the scheme taxes are decided based on whether it is an equity or a debt scheme. So, in our country, obviously, it is either equity or debt. So, as per equity, if your scheme is, let's say, equity taxable, anything which you redeem before 1 year, sir, that will be short-term capital gain, which is taxable at 15%, which is a flat rate. Anything which you redeemed after completing 1 year, that is long-term capital gain, it is taxable at 10% after giving you a exemption of 1 lakh rupee of capital gain. If you want to understand it in a more refined manner, we have a text lab. We'll be happy to share it with Shalini. She is the best person who could share it with you, and you will get the breakup of that. If you have chosen a debt scheme, sir, so debt short-term capital gain is up to 3 years. Anything which you redeem through SWP before completing 3 years is short-term. That is added to your income tax slab. Anything you redeem by SWP after 3 years, that is long-term capital gain. It is taxable 20% with indexation rate. That is after adjusting for inflation. So taxation is as per the tax liability of that respective scheme. And there are slabs, which we have highlighted. I hope it answers the question. Uh, how this SWP will work for retired investors, as we have some investors who are retired. Okay. Uh, so see, people who are already retired, I hope we got the idea of SWP. It is to create a secondary income. Whether I'm retired or I'm yet to retire, I think that would be subjective. But let's say I'm somebody who is retired and I would want to get some secondary source of income. I think SWP is a beautiful product. What it offers, whatever is my cost of investment today, 6% of that is what I will get today. And obviously, we would have seen the calculation that how much time or at what rate for how long the money could last. So even for a retired investor, we are definitely recommending Freedom SWP. There are schemes which are available. Let's say there are 8 schemes which are available. You can choose the one which is, let's say, equity taxation, and it is more comfortable, more conservative in terms of managing overall market volatility, something like Balance Advantage Fund. I'm just giving you a bird eye view. Obviously, you can look at a scheme after speaking to the financial advisor more precisely, and that could tell you which scheme should be more suitable as per the risk appetite. But we are definitely recommending it for a retired investor, and it is a very consistent cash flow. It is not like dividend, because dividend is subjective to profitability. SWP is a fixed cash flow. If you are getting 5,000 rupee a month, my investor will get 5,000 rupee a month. The amount is going to be fixed, and the amount is also going to increase annually at either 3, 4, or 5% rate, whatever I decided to be. So I am actually giving a sure short solution to my investor, and especially at the time when I'm retiring, I would be purely dependent on this kind of a cash flow. I think it's a beautiful tool to invest in. Okay. So I think someone has asked which mutual fund, large, mid, multi-cap, small, would be better option for investment for 3 to 5 year. So sir, I think between the four, let's say, category which you're looking at, the difference is of risk appetite. Obviously, small cap are the riskiest, followed by mid cap, relatively lower, obviously followed by large cap, and multi cap are the I would say the relatively lower riskier, because they tend to venture into all the market caps. So I am just giving you what I think, and you can obviously look onto it after speaking to Shalini. So we feel multi-cap in the current markets are more acceptable by people. Why? Because let's say if I enter a small cap today, so today the small caps are rallying, but let's say 2 years down the line, if there is concern related to liquidity, there can be a steeper impact. 3 to 5 year is, I think, a fair time horizon to invest in equity. But for investor to come in small cap for 3 to 5 year, I have to have really high risk appetite, whereas mostly people do not have that. So hence multi-cap is the most acceptable product, because it will be small cap, it can become mid cap, it can become large cap, whatever is required. There is no capping onto it. Whereas small cap has to have 65% in small cap all the time, mid cap need to have 65% allocation to mid cap all the time, large cap need to have 80% allocation to large cap all the time. So after multi-cap, if you have to choose one, you can maybe look at large cap category, because in the current context, it is the large cap companies who are benefiting out of the prima facie recovery which the market is seeing. I hope it answers the question. But yes, you can also obviously look at as per the risk appetite. Uh, After the unlock one, what are the heavy income generation sectors? So, sir, heavy income generation sectors, as in, if you look at what are the sectors who have, prima facie benefited out of the current situation. Obviously, telecom, pharma, let's say, some of the commodities have also recovered. There will be some sectors who will continue to benefit out of it. I think obviously pharma, telecom would be. So eventually, any set of companies or any set of sectors who will be the primary source of, let's say, the revival into the economy. So if today we are connected, obviously we believe telecom is the reason why this has been possible. and ICICI have been vocal about telecom. We have been taking position into telecom. I think we have bought some of the stocks which are there. Obviously, there are not many in the telecom space. So without me saying it, you know what those stocks are. So this is one sector where the valuations were attractive, and we feel that they will continue to do well. What we are trying to avoid is any sector which is luxury or related to tourism or travel, where I think recovery could be laggard, and obviously it would not be seen in, let's say, the first or the second phase of the unlocking. But for the next 1 year, if you ask us what ICICI is bullish on, so let's say the sectors where we are building a position, obviously telecom is one of them. Obviously pharma is another sector. We have also built a position onto metal and mining. Maybe some investors would be comfortable with that. Some would find it would be taking a little longer for them to recover. But from our perspective, we have taken position onto it. We feel they are relatively better price. We are also, let's say, invested into utilities, power companies. Some of the stocks which we have bought are power generating companies, power transmission companies. So these are some of the sectors where we feel they are the one where the economical revival will prima facie be dependent on. Okay. Uh, I think the next question is SWP scores more over the dividend option in mutual fund. Yes, we would say yes to that. Why? See, dependent. Earlier, what the case was when the dividend were tax free, and this is 2 years ago. A lot of market has bought dividend. I would also like to announce in the interest of time that I think our session was scheduled for about 1 hour 30 minutes. So by that, I think we are very soon going to run out of time. So if in case the session gets over, we can obviously I can answer these question, and we can again connect one to one, but I'll try to answer it as much as quickly as I can. uh, okay, so why SWP over dividend? Dividend used to be tax free. Right now they are not. Dividend are taxed as per your income tax slab, and dividend are never fixed. So why would I take dividend or SWP? Because I need income monthly. My kitchen expenses are dependent on that. So what would happen when dividend won't come? There is a possibility it won't. When the market are falling, I would not have money to spend. That is problem number one. Problem number two, even if the dividends are coming, I'm paying taxes on it. Even if the dividend coming from the capital loss, still I'm paying taxes on it. So that is a complete disaster to my overall wealth creation. I would rather take SWP. If I do not have capital gain, at least I'm not paying any taxes. Plus, SWP is a fixed amount and it will come wherever the market would go. So, hence, yes, SWP is a better solution than dividend to get a secondary form of income. Okay. I think Arpit Gupta has asked, can I stop my policy before its entire duration? Will I be charged for it? Yes, you can stop. Mutual fund are very, very flexible. You do not have to worry about the policy term. There is no policy, sir. It is, an indicative horizon which you have chosen, but you have all the comfort of stopping it. You can pause it. You can, change and cancel it as well. So all that comfort is there. It is very, very flexible. Both the SIP as well as SWP, you can take a call on that. So I believe we have answered all the questions which were there in the chat box. Anything you would like to add, Shalini, before we sum up, or maybe the call gets over?
No, either. Thank you for that run up on all the questions quickly. I think we need to end the session now. It was scheduled for 1 hour. We've shot up by another 30 minutes. And thanks, investors, for joining in for that engaging session, for all of the questions that you put in. We hope you enjoyed the session. Do let us know on any further recommendations that you have for the purpose of the future webinars. So we'll sign off now.
Thank you very much,
Thanks.
everyone. Thanks for your time. Bye.